Hey, how are you doing? I'm Vasco Duarte, your host on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, and I've got some exciting news. So, right now, as I record this, I'm holding in my hand the signed contract for our very first Global Agile Summit. We're all in, and I couldn't wait to share this news with you. So mark your calendars, May 18th to 20th of 2025 in Tallinn, Estonia. We're going to have a transformative experience. We're putting together an event that it's all about real-life Agile. It's not theory or buzzwords. It's practitioners sharing what's working, what's making an impact, and how they've overcome challenges that you too will have to face, or maybe even facing right now. We're bringing together the best stories in Agile, from product leaders to engineering wizards to business visionaries. These will be stories that will inspire you to action. This isn't just another conference. It's a chance to connect with the people that are shaping the future of Agile. And here's the best part. Right now, we're in our super early bird phase. And that means you can grab tickets at just 25% of the final price. Look, that's not just half off. It's half off of the half off. It's an incredible deal for our dedicated community members, just like you, listening to this right now. So at the summit, day one will be all about hands-on workshops. And days 2 and 3 will dive into leadership, product strategy, coding, testing, and everything that makes Agile thrive in organizations right now. Remember, these are all first-person, real-life stories. Now, whether you're a leader, a developer, or part of a consulting company, this event is built to take your Agile game to the next level. So don't wait. Go to globalagilesummit.com and grab your ticket today. Let's all make 2025 the year Agile truly transforms your teams, your business, and our industry. I'll see you all in Tallinn. And remember, go to globalagilesummit.com and get your super early bird ticket right now. It will only be available until the agenda is announced. So don't wait. Grab it right now. Right, now that that's out of the way, on to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Team Tuesday. This week we have with us Ellen Grove. Hey, Ellen, welcome back.
Hello. I am delighted to be here, as always.
And we are delighted to have you. For those of you who haven't checked it out yet, check yesterday's episode, a great story about the role of Scrum Master in larger change. But today we talk about teams and how sometimes they become their own worst enemies, Ellen. But we'll talk about teams in a second, though, because the first question on Tuesday is always, what was the book that most inspired you in your career as a Scrum Master?
I gotta say that this was a hard question to answer because there were so many books that I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to talk about two. Because one is The Art of Possibility by Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander, which is was recommended to me by a team member in my very first coaching gig, or Scrum Mastering gig, sorry. And I loved that book because it's really about opening up how you think about the world around you and the agency you have in it. And thinking, it encourages you to think about, how do I think differently about how do I solve problems? How do I approach difficult situations? How do I interact with other people? The book that I actually want to talk about, though, is Humble Inquiry by Edgar Schein, and the new edition is by Edgar Schein and Peter Schein, which is, again, about changing how you interact with people. The premise of Humble Inquiry is that relationships are more important than task orientation when we're trying to solve problems together. And so if we want to be successful, and this book is aimed at leaders, but I think it's applicable to anybody, especially applicable to anybody who's working with other people. But rather than coming from a stance of our goal is to solve this problem together and our conversation is going to focus on that, and I am going to ask you a whole bunch of questions that are often very controlling or directive in a way about what we're going to do together, you need to step into a stance of, we have to recognize that we all have a part of the problem to solve and that each of us knows things the other doesn't. And so in order to be successful together, we really need to pay attention to, how do we build relationships with each other? We don't have to like each other, but we have to figure out, how do we respect and trust each other? And then the other part that the book really delves into is how to ask better questions that help towards building that sense of relationship and shared responsibility. And it's got some beautiful, beautiful content about sort of picking apart different kinds of questions and showing where some traditional approaches to how do we go and tackle a problem-solving situation are probably not doing a whole lot to build the relationship, and give some practical advice for, here's how to ask a better class of questions. Honestly, here's how to ask better questions. The other thing that I really appreciate about the book is, at the end, it has a chapter about why taking this stance is so hard in Western working culture. Because of some of the ways that organizational culture is shaped, some of the beliefs and values that are built into it. Why is it so difficult to prioritize building effective relationships with the people that you're working with over clinging to that task orientation mindset where we just need to tell each other what to do and it'll all be fine? And it's a quick read. It's a beautiful book. I recommend it to everybody I talk to. You should read this book because it is mind expanding.
Humble Inquiry by Schein and Schein. I'll put the link in the show notes to both of the books, of course. But Ellen, now we turn our attention to the teams, whom, of course, we want to use the book's knowledge to help. But sometimes we have to recognize that teams just develop their own patterns, and those patterns have almost like a life of their own. And we want to explore one of those stories, right? So tell us a little bit about the context so that we know, how big the team is and so on. And then walk us through those small steps, how these little behaviors grew and became a problem for the team.
So a long time ago, I was coaching at a large public sector enterprise, not the post office this time, and working with a team that was developing a website for part of the organization. And this was an organization that was, I'm going to say, fairly new to working in an agile way, but they were really actually quite serious and intentional about, we were trying to do things differently. But the pattern that emerged was, they had a product owner who built them a beautiful backlog, and here's all the things that we need to do in the order of importance. And the team started to ignore the priorities of things in the backlog. And sometimes it was out of good intentions. Oh, we're blocked on that one. I'm going to pick the thing that's lower down in the backlog instead. Oh, I know that's more important, but I really like working on this and we're going to get it done anyways. So I'm going to focus on doing that, not the thing that's been deemed most important. And the end result was they got to the end of their budget runway. They ran out of money and time, and they hadn't actually built the most important part of the product as the product owner had identified it. And in fact, it was a landing page for this website. And with the consequence that they had built all this stuff and none of it was usable. None of it was usable because the thing that held it all together was completely missing. And that's reflective of a pattern that I've seen that's bitten a few teams that I've worked with, where the team, and it goes back to asking the right questions, right? And actually listening to the answers. The team assumes we know best what should be done and why. Not how to do it, but we know what should be done. We know what the customer really needs. We know what the most important things to deliver are. And they end up not being successful in their work because they didn't deliver the right things. And I've seen this pattern replicate a couple of different ways. I've worked more recently with a team that, I'm going to say, built something new and innovative. I really don't want to name names, but they built something new and innovative. but they didn't talk to their customers while they were doing it. And consequently, they came out with something that the customers are just like, we don't want to use that. And it was an enterprise situation. So it wasn't a market situation. It was, they were building it for other people in the same company. And so they could have talked to them. They could have easily talked to them about, hey, what do you really need to solve your problems? How do you solve this in your day-to-day life? But instead, they took the stance that, well, we know what the most important things to build are. We understand the problem space. We're going to build the thing that people need.
This is a very interesting pattern that you just described. And I want to especially focus on those teams that, for some reason, believe that whatever they do needs to be used. Like, for example, I was working with a team that was developing software to automate a process in the public sector. And they told me, yeah, but the managers say that the workers will have to use the electronic system anyway. And I was like, wait a minute, is there a backup paper process for this? And they said, yes. Well, now you need to make your product 10 times better than the paper alternative, because they're not going to use your product unless they get a significant benefit from it. And what you just described sounds to me like a very similar pattern, which is, hey, whatever we do needs to be used anyway. So, and we already know what to do. So why don't we just do it? And then we forget that there's this very important part to Agile product development, which is explicit and direct feedback collection from the users and customers.
Yeah. Explicit and direct feedback collection, and from people who really are the users. Because in a lot of these circumstances, what you see is that the product owner is somebody who's more closely aligned to the technical organization than they are to the users. And that certainly doesn't stop that pattern. I'm not going to say it actively encourages it, but it really creates that kind of echo chamber within the team of, we're the technical experts. We understand the problem. We know the right thing to build. Success is building what we think is the best solution, without having that necessary step that you identified of, maybe we should check with people who are going to use this, that it's a solution that's workable for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that aspect of collecting feedback will always uncover surprises. Sometimes they're small surprises, sometimes they're big surprises, but it is within that aspect of being surprised that we really learn something about the users and their needs, right? And when we do things, even with the best of intentions, when we do things that are already on the backlog and we quote unquote already know what to do, we never give ourselves the chance of being surprised, therefore understanding the users and customers we're serving.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very, I'm going to say it's a very stealthy form of self-destruction, because that's what the question was about, right? Team self-destructive behaviors. Because while you're building it, if you're not getting that feedback of people they're excited, they're building the right things, they're producing lots of work often, everything looks good from the outside, but it's missing that feedback loop of, are we building the right thing? We may be building lots of things, we can be building them the right way, everybody's happy, team looks great, and then it's like, but what were you doing? You didn't do the right thing at all, or you didn't do the right thing in some really important ways. And so it's kind of a really surprising form of how teams crash and burn.
I really like
to the ones that just aren't getting along or can't get their act together to deliver something. Those problems are really easy to see and deal with.
Yeah, I really love it how you said it, that it's a very stealth form of self-destruction. That was beautifully articulated. Thank you for sharing that, Ellen.
You're very welcome.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.